Coming from New Tech Institute of Evansville, Indiana, on October 31st, 2023, we welcome you to our bilingual podcast to discuss the true and sad story of El Escape Cubano.
With your hosts, John Vu,
Will Gurur,
Scale Lowry,
Grant Steele,
Sophia Gonzalez,
and Nathan Weiss.
We present the Bilingual Podcast. Conformity is the jailer of freedom and the enemy of growth. A quote from John F. Kennedy still stands true to this day. It demonstrates the poor conditions that are coercing Cubans to migrate to America. Before we dive into Escape Cuba, we should first talk about the root problems that are causing turmoil in Cuba. One of the most significant issues that Cubans face is their authoritarian communist government. What are your thoughts on this problem?
The only political party in Cuba is a communist regime, so it's the people's only option. I think that this is very oppressive to the people and is kind of awful.
It's tragic that Cuba has to be oppressed by their communist government. Why would their government stay communist?
I mean, looking at the issue from a legal standpoint, it's literally within their constitution to be only a socialist or communist state.
Wait, really? It's in their constitution?
Yeah, it literally states, we the people of Cuba are committed to Cuba never returning to a capitalist regime sustained by the exploitation of man, and that it is only in socialism and communism that a human being can achieve his or her dignity.
Well, what does that mean for them?
Well, it's saying we're never going back to running like the United States, and it describes capitalism as taking advantage of human workers.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, just in case you didn't know, like the difference between capitalism, communism, and socialist states are capitalism supports a free market and free economy without government involvement. Communism, on the other hand, is the government has complete control of production and other resources. And then socialism is where everything is equally distributed among everyone.
They do get confused a lot, I will say that.
Yeah, it is really confusing, and as of 2019, Cubans voted on this new constitution. It includes granting the right to private property and granting them the right to free access to markets. And the fact that they voted on this themselves and the fact that they can own private property causes them to be a completely socialist state.
Now, I agree that capitalism isn't the best system and it has its flaws, but to have capitalism is the only thing I can think of, and I'm biased for that because I've been raised with capitalism. I think that capitalism is way better than communism and socialism in the way that socialism, you can't equally distribute everything to everybody, and especially for the same amount of work. Everyone, that's just not how that works. On a paper, it sounds great, but in reality, it wouldn't work out.
See, my opinion, communism and socialism can very easily be taken advantage of by the ruling party or the ruling power. So that's why, I'm kind of biased for capitalism.
I agree with that. It says that communism gives full control, or the government has full control of production. That isn't a good idea for having one party or one system to have full power. Another unresolved issue ongoing in Cuba is its continuous economic crises. What's going on?
Well, in my opinion, the economic collapse of Cuba was a long time coming. The COVID-19 pandemic pushed Cuba over its tipping point. With an economy heavily dependent on tourism, having to stop people from coming in is very detrimental. And with Cuba not able to, wanting to, import or export, it digs them in an even deeper financial hole.
and also, according to the National Immigration Forum, after years of COVID-19, sanctions, and political turmoil, on September 26, 2022, Hurricane Ian, a Category 4 hurricane, made landfall on Cuba. So they're constantly being overwhelmed with seemingly insurmountable problems. Policies in social issues like the wet foot, dry foot policy, and disillusionment are causing Cubans to immigrate to America. How can we fix these problems?
I think it's heart-wrenching that the Cubans had to suffer all this political and economical turmoil and then just be faced with a hurricane, a Category 4 hurricane. The destruction of not just losing lives, but their educational institutions and their supplies is just, it's terrible.
Not to mention the wet foot, dry foot policy. Having to face going over, the vast endless ocean just to be stopped and sent back from a place that you've wanted to escape from. That's quite horrifying in my opinion.
Going off of what he said, it's approximately a 91-mile journey that they have to go through in order to get to the Americas. And to, at the end of this journey, just be sent back to have to potentially do it all over again is just horrible.
It's completely disheartening after an arduous journey of just being dehydrated and somewhat starving, surviving on chips and just water. And to be sent back to your oppressive rulers, it's just demoralizing.
I couldn't imagine.
Well, some of them, when they get to like Florida, they don't even have water or food left in their boat.
Most of the time they're found dehydrated or, just about malnourished.
A lot of people have drowned or have starved or have died of so many different causes because they didn't prepare enough.
So how does this correlate with the book we mentioned at the beginning? It correlates with the tragedy and journeys of many Cuban families like the one in the book experienced firsthand. We are going to reenact the separation of a family and the loss of loved ones in the book.
Subete!
No puedo.
No one sees Miguel's mother, and they all start to panic.
¿Y mi mamá?
Alondra, subete!
No me quiero ir. Tengo miedo. Y Miguel se queda conmigo.
No!
Quiero ir con mi mamá.
Alondra grabs Miguel's arm.
Mamá, mamá.
Alondra, ¿dónde estás?
Miguel, Miguel.
¿A dónde vas?
Voy con mi mamá.
Tú vas conmigo.
Miguel, vamos.
Mamá, súbete.
Miguel, no te puedes ir.
All of a sudden, they're shouting in the far distance. It's the guards.
La Guardia Costera!
Everyone is nervous because the guards have guns. Rodani does not let Miguel go with his mother.
Unfortunately, Miguel had to choose between his parents and staying in Cuba with an intense situation.
Imagine going through that, having to leave your home and one of your parents doesn't want to leave, having to leave one of your parents behind. It's sad.
Even though I'm not close with my parents, it's emotionally heartbreaking to having to choose between your parents, especially trying to escape from your oppressive rule.
So my parents aren't together at all, and I recently had to make the choice between whether or not I wanted to go with my mother or with my other part of the family. And I can tell you this, it is a very difficult situation and it's very stressful. Not only for the parents, but for the kid too. Because you have to figure out, who do I want to basically live the rest of my life with?
I mean, you have the father wanting to try to give their son a better life while the mother wants to stay in Cuba. What would you even do in that situation?
And the fact that Miguel wasn't really even given an option. He had to stay with his father because his father wouldn't let him go with his mother. It's very sad.
The reenactment of Miguel's heart-wrenching decision to choose between his parents and the intense situation in Cuba serves as a powerful reminder of the challenges and suffering faced by many Cuban families. It undermines the difficult choices and what they have to figure out. These choices are forced on these people, and it's a harsh reality of living underneath the oppressive regime because it's a short book. It's extremely digestible for an English reader to understand, even if you don't know a lot of Spanish.
Cuban citizens' situations are worsened by the economic and political issues caused by the oppressive rule of the authoritarian communist government, COVID-19, national disasters, social disillusionment, and American policies to seek shelter and opportunities elsewhere like America.
El Escape Cubano serves us as a reminder that freedom and a better life are fundamental for humanity. It highlights the toll of freedom for many who seek a better life. We encourage our listeners to do more research and find solutions for the complex Cuban conflict. This concludes our podcast, and we hope we helped you understand and reflect on the root causes of Cuba and why they're immigrating to America.
And this was made possible by John Boo,
Will Goodworth.
Scale Lowry.
Grant Steele.
Sofia Gonzalez.
And Nathan Weiss.
Hasta luego.